needs no introduction because this is the 8th year in a row that we do our State of OSHA. We're getting old, Condell. But we look good, and that's what's most important. So 8 years, South Florida AGC has been doing the annual State of OSHA. We're very grateful that the OSHA office prepares this presentation, gets data together, comes out, interacts with us and the construction safety community here in this forum, and answers our questions. Condell has been the area director as long as I've been there. How many years is this now, Condell? 11 years as area director. So Condell has always been open to sharing with us, communicating with us and our team. We've had several sit downs with Condell throughout the years, and he's always been very gracious. That being said, we love this opportunity to get a view of the data Condell sees when it comes to trends in our region, and we appreciate the opportunity to learn about what we should expect from Condell and his team in the coming year. Obviously, we had an election not too long ago, so there'll probably be a shift, but that shouldn't impact us for at least the next 6 months. However, we'll use it as an opportunity to bring Condell back in a little bit earlier in the year next year, maybe even twice a year, so he can talk to us about what shifts he sees in his office and what policy changes, if any, are going to impact the construction community. With that being said, I know I talk too much. Let's turn things over to the person you want to hear from, Mr. Condell Eastman. Please, applause.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's not working?
I know exactly.
It's okay. We're good, we're good. So it's good to be back. It was only a year ago, but he's moving it. I think he wants me to come every month or every quarter because it was December and now it's November. So, and then he's talking about 6 months. So Carlos, what is this? Oh, okay. All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Carlos's term, the State of OSHA. I mean, I couldn't coin it any better than that. So I decided I'm going to put it right up front of the presentation. The State of OSHA. So yeah, I do enjoy coming and talking to folks. I know most people hear of OSHA think of enforcement and think of the, all the tough things that happen when we're out there and we see bad stuff, but also we have a good side to us. Many of you have interacted with our compliance assistant specialists. We have Lenny Chango and you have Virgie, in the past, but there are lots of good things that that we do as well. And one of the things we strive for is to ensure that workers live up to our mission, which is to ensure that workers have a safe and healthy work environment. As a matter of fact, this year, the acting assistant secretary, he revised the mission statement that more fully reflects the agency's purpose and the work that we do to serve all the people that includes the critical role. So before it was simple, I could have remembered it, but now I have to actually read it, but the parts that were added pretty much talks about, because we do look at whistleblower, we enforce whistleblower laws. The training, outreach, and education is an important component. Like I said a minute ago, people only hear OSHA to think enforcement, but it's important that we emphasize the outreach and the education component and the compliance assistance that we perform as well. And even like now we talk about, Carlos mentioned the hurricanes. We just had 2 hurricanes that hit Florida. We're actually out there doing compliance assistant activities such as interventions and outreach. We stop at those places where we see workers who are potentially exposed to hazards and where they're doing hurricane related work. And we bring the employees down. Let's say they're doing putting a tarp up or doing roofing work. We bring them down and talk to them and essentially make sure that the employers provide those workers with the necessary protections and we move it along. So there is a softer side to us, and that's our role. Is that just like you folks here, you're not here because you just want the breakfast, the orange juice and stuff. You're here because you're really interested in workplace safety. And I don't think I've met many employers, if any, that don't really care about their workers. They want to make the money, but obviously they want to make sure the workers are safe too. So those two can go hand in hand. We realize that, and that's why we partner with many of the companies out there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And we like to come up to AGC and some of the other groups so that they know what's going on and can help protect their workers.
Condell, some people are here just for the breakfast.
I don't blame them. So the idea is to have a balanced approach, where the strong, fair, and effective enforcement, which obviously serves as a deterrent. We must have that deterrent factor. Ensure that their safety and health standards and guidance, develop them when they're necessary, where there are gaps, training and education, compliance assistance, and outreach in the cooperative program. So we're trying to do all of those to ensure that we really and truly do what we have been tasked to do in terms of protecting workers. Now, there has been a shift. I don't know, before when I came here, you used to hear me talk about Region 4. There has been some realignment, and the purpose of that was to ensure that we put our resources where we can better impact, have a greater impact on the workers and make the agency more resilient. So we had 10 regions in the past. We still have 10 regions now, but we kind of shifted things around. You had Region 9 and Region 10 out west, and they combined those two regions because they cover mostly state plan states. And what they call it now is the San Francisco region. And rather than calling it by a number, it goes by the city where the regional office is based out of. So now we are in the Atlanta region. That's referred to as the Atlanta region. And in where Dallas is the regional office, it's no longer Region 6. And they created a region here, and they put the office in Birmingham, the regional office in Birmingham. So now you have a Birmingham regional office. And as part of that, they took away some of the offices, the states from Florida, from Georgia, and we no longer cover Mississippi and Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And this little part of Florida here, that goes into the Birmingham region as well. So there's just these 4 states that the Atlanta region covers. So just to give data update, and you might see 2022, and we're almost in 2025, but this is the data that we have currently, the 2022 data. Next year in December, we'll have the 2023 data. And if you look, we have 38. In 1970, we had 38 fatalities a day. And now it's currently, as of 2022, it's 14 fatalities a day. And if you look at the news recently, I saw headlines where we are actually happy to see that the fatality and the injury and illness rate seems to be trending downward. So that's a good sign. In 2021, there was one work-related fatality every minute, and in 2022 it was slightly higher. So it ticked up a little bit in 2022, but for recent data, it shows a downward trend. So that's what we want to see, where fatalities and injuries are trending downwards. Construction, usually one of the highest industries of fatality. In 2022, we had 1,056 fatalities in the construction sector. The one that beats that would be unfortunately, would be the transportation sector, where you had more fatalities in the transportation sector. 12.3 and 13 deaths per 100,000 full-time employees in 2021 and 2022, respectively. And overall, we had over 2.8 million non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses in 2022. Still a lot of people getting injured on the job. As a matter of fact, in our office, we process, I say on average every week, we probably get like 4 accident-related, workplace-related accidents that we respond to. Like 4 weeks. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're responding to. Still too many people are getting hurt on the job. Yeah. So the data covers all sectors, all industry sectors, right? And the second part of your question, where if somebody falls on a construction site and as a result of a heart attack or whatever the case might be. Just to segue a little bit is that even heart attacks, employers are supposed to report. What happens is that when we come to the work site, and if we do an inspection, because we can handle it one of two ways, we can either do an on-site inspection or a non-formal inquiry where we would send out a letter, send an investigative tool and says, respond to us. Depends on the circumstances. But I always tell employers this is that we don't necessarily, even though we respond to a work site because an accident or a fatality has occurred, we look at what triggered that accident, or what triggered that fatality. So if something was predetermined, let's say this person had a pre-existing condition that they just happened to, had poor health prognosis, and they essentially collapsed on the job because they didn't follow up with appointments, didn't take the medication, whatever the case might be. Obviously, we wouldn't look any further into that. However, if this person had some underlying conditions and they were exposed to, let's say, a chemical substance or heat or something like that, and that could have triggered the health event, we would look at what preceded that event versus what the outcome was. No, not necessarily, because we don't always issue I see your point. We don't always issue violations as a result of a death or an accident or something like that. So it's just what is attributed to show that there's a work relatedness. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it.
Do you want to take questions during the presentation, or do you prefer to wait to the end?
Doesn't matter to me. I like talking, so whichever way works for you guys.
Cool. So yeah, if you have a question, please make sure you raise your hand, so Kendall can call you. So, okay, perfect. All right, no worries. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the characteristics of the fatalities. And we saw that there was an increase in white non-Hispanics by 2.1%. And the changes 22 versus 21, the prior year. We had a significant increase in Black or African-American non-Hispanic, increased by 12% and Hispanic by 10.4%. And the reason why this data is important is that it shows you the population. Remember, I talked about how they're distributing the resources. So it tells you what populations are most impacted by workplace safety and where the resources are best spent. So you see that in the Southeast, they kind of put that office in Birmingham, the regional office, and kind of broke it apart because they believe that the resources needed to go there to ensure that the workers in the Southeast who needed the resources would be best spent there. In 2023, calendar year 2023, this is for the state of Florida. We put this out every year, something called the Fatal Facts report, and you can see Fort Lauderdale's in green. Obviously, something we wish it didn't occur, but we get a lot of between Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. We usually have like Florida has 1/3 of the fatalities of the region. Traditionally, now that we're broken apart, we might have about half of them, or maybe more than half, because we're one of the biggest states. But Tampa and Fort Lauderdale generally carries the most fatalities each year. And even with Orlando, because Orlando office came online, I think 2 or 3 years ago, you still see a significant trend in fatalities for Tampa office as well. By nationality, just in South Florida alone, 72% of the fatalities were Hispanic workers, 14% were Haitian workers. And by category, we had 36.8% were related to falls, and 33% related to struck by, and 10% related to electrical shock. And 4.7% related to drowning hazards, and 3.8% are 4 workers died of heat exhaustion. And that's for calendar year 2023. I decided I wanted to pull, we just finished our fiscal year, September 30th. So I wanted to pull some stats. I was running some stats and I had it somewhat readily available. So I decided I'll throw it out there anyway, just because I figure if we're giving the state of OSHA in South Florida, might as well give you some stats here. And last year we conducted, and the numbers are still, settling out, but we conducted approximately 630 inspections. And about 50 of those inspections, we addressed heat hazards in the workplace. 49 fatality investigations that we conducted. 61% of the inspections that were conducted in our office were construction related. And that's the trend because, yes, sir. That's just construction separate. Yes, sir. And the question was whether it includes transportation or just construction, and it's just construction. I'm getting there. 12 inspections with penalties over 40,000 were issued last year. 2 of those inspections, the penalty was over $100,000. And 75% of the penalties over 40,000 went to construction companies, were related to construction. And why I brought it up? It's not to gloat or boast or anything like that. It's to let folks know that construction is one of the most dangerous work places where most people get injured, and that's where we focus our energies and where we find a lot of the hazards. We issued 33 willful and repeat citations, and we know that those citations carry a maximum penalty of about $163,000. So just to highlight that fact. And we also processed over 2,000 calls and complaints, either electronic complaints, calls coming into our office, or reports of hazards. And not all of them were valid. But why I bring it up, because I talked to my folks as well above me, and we look at the data, and we may have only processed, let's say, a third of those, let's say, were valid that we acted upon. But it takes resources to actually take the call, listen, evaluate it, and determine what we're going to do with it. So that's why I put that number out there, because we have 16 compliance officers now, and we cover from Vero Beach all the way to the Keys and over to Naples, and with all the accidents and the fatalities coming in, we are a very stretched office. We are stretched thin, So it's important that. Some people say, well, why is OSHA now showing up? Or why am I getting my citations 6 months down the road, or what have you, or 5 months down the road? It's not because we don't want to get it out sooner, not that we don't want to do our jobs faster. It's just that we are stretched so thin that we are juggling multiple balls at the same time. So we try to give the best possible service, but sometimes because we're pulled in multiple directions, we really have to do the best we can with the time, with this resources we have. Fatalities by sector, this should have been in the other slide, but 51% construction, and the rest speaks for itself. Agriculture, lawn and garden care. One of the trends we see in lawn and garden care is people just flipping lawnmowers into the water or touching power lines. That's typically what we get all the time. Is unfortunate it occurs, but it does. Something we think that is purely avoidable. A lot of things are avoidable, but that definitely is one where people just touch power lines all the time. The top 10 in construction. I've been coming here for what, more than 8 years, and pretty much it's the same thing. So if that's what it is. That's what we're seeing out there. So it hasn't changed much. If you've seen this slide before, it isn't really much new that you're seeing. So we have the top 10 violations in general industry. It pretty much stays stable. The same things that we see more or less. And this is nationwide. The stats that I'm giving you are nationwide, not necessarily South Florida, for this slide and the prior slide as well. where hazard communications are top-sided, powered industrial trucks, respiratory protection, general requirements of electrical hazards, lockout, tagout, and the others. The focus of the agency, we have a regional emphasis program, and we have a national emphasis program. The regional emphasis program, we continue to focus on construction only for the state programs. That would be now North and South Carolina, because we no longer have Tennessee and Kentucky. Federal agencies, shipbuild and repair, sanitation and cleanup operation, electrical hazards. Essentially, that's where overhead, people touching overhead power lines, noise hazards, landscaping and horticultural services, poultry and processing facilities, powered industrial trucks, maritime, and safety hazards in the other parts section. Those are the where we focus our programmed activities on when we're out and about. And for the national emphasis program, you have combustible dust, fall prevention and protection. One of the things I highlight is that before you would see compliance officers, we would go out, we have an emphasis program of falls that was regional, but they did it nationally, and now it covers both general industry, all sectors, not just construction alone. You have amputation, heat hazard, there's an emphasis on heat. There's a proposed standard that's making its way through rulemaking. You have hex, chromium, lead, primary metals, process safety management, ship breaking, silica, trenching and excavation, which continues to injure and hurt people, and people still are putting folks in trenches that are unprotected. And you have warehousing as well as an emphasis program. The fall NEP, this is probably more pertinent to this group, is that it started in August 2023. All construction inspection related falls will be conducted pursuant to the NEP, and all other inspections related to falls will be conducted pursuant to the NEP. So for instance, if you see people doing rooftop mechanical work, utility line employees, holiday light installations, which we see a lot of at this time of the year, billboard, roadside billboard maintenance, power washing in buildings, gutter cleaning, chimney cleaning, window cleaning, communication towers, our compliance officers do have the authority to stop and address those hazards. Warehousing, we started this NEP October last year. It covers both program and non-program. It expires in 3 years unless extended. Postal distribution centers, courier express services, local messenger services, refrigerated warehousing, and what have you. It will not include the usual postal or package transportation delivered to residents or businesses. We want you to get your mail. We don't want to hold up your meal, so we leave them alone. But that's not considered a warehouse. That's kidding events. It's a rough crowd this morning. No smart. I don't think they like your breakfast, Carlos. Go get something else, you know. Nobody's smiling. The heat NEP, I touched on it. I'll touch on it again because, like it or not, heat is a real issue. It's a real hazard. It impacts workers. We know we get a lot of complaints. We get a lot of people get hospitalized for heat exhaustion, heat-related illness, and we have established, that's the reason for the emphasis program. And a lot of times, I have to admit that in the past and going through years, we've learned a lot of lessons from it, from the standpoint that a lot of times we would, in the past, we would have done, oh, Johnny just came home, or he went to the bathroom, collapsed, or whatever the case might be. And everybody thought that it was a heart attack, or I mean, I had a, diagnosed as a heart attack. And we didn't necessarily always focus in on what Johnny was doing prior to the collapse, just like I was mentioning to you. And that's what we focus in on now, is that what was the person doing? So if a heart attack is called and we need some more information from you as an employer. We're trying to understand whether or not the employer had procedures in place and ensuring that that worker was protected during their work activity, and it's truly a medical event and not triggered by heat-related factors. So heat NEP applies both outdoor and indoor. the heat priority days when the heat index exceeds 80 degrees, sorry. I'll just say that the biggest factor that we see when we're out there is that employers do have water and they have provide water, shade, or whatever the case might be, but they're not necessarily enforcing it. You know, employees say, "Oh yeah, I'm feeling okay," and they let employees continue to do what they, continue working. Or an employee was out on leave, had vacation, whatever the case might be, and they come back and put them right back out in the sun to do the work activity, and not taking into account that this person went up to Alaska, went on a cruise somewhere where it's cold, and not allowing them to acclimatize. And acclimatization is a big factor, and also ensuring that they're drinking water and taking enough rest breaks. So it's a big issue. We get a lot of complaints, a lot of hospitalizations, or people getting medical attention because of heat factors. And it's real, like it or not, it's real. And we want employers, and we're trying to educate employers as, hey, you have to ensure that you have procedures in place to protect the workers. The injury tracking application, the final rule came out. Everyone knows now that employers have to submit their 300 information, and you have to submit it by the due date is March 2nd. Thank you. The effective date is January 1st. I was getting mixed up. The effective date was January 1st. The due date is March 2nd. My apologies. And what happens is that if you don't submit it and we initiate an inspection at the work site, what happens is it's flagged, and it's flagged by the national office that this employer did not submit the data. And then we have to look into why the data was not submitted. So it's important that the data is submitted in a timely manner. And we've actually issued a couple citations last year for employers not submitting the data timely. So if you have support staff, get them in line, get them in, understanding what needs to be done, and submit the data in a timely manner, because obviously now everything's electronic and everything is flagged, because once we put the inspection in the system, it pops up that the employer never submitted the data, and we have to address that. What
you say the highest risk industries? I guess all the construction's in there, or
let me go back.
GCs don't do anything.
That's the way to get hired.
I get it goes back. I don't know what's all right. So
I'm gonna be very upset.
all right. So I can't get back to the slide. I'm sorry. But I'll get back to your question. Yeah. So what's new with OSHA, or relatively new with OSHA, because time flies when you're having fun? The worker walk around representative designation process. Anyone heard about that?
Yes, but you can cover it.
Oh, I don't need to cover it if I heard about it. No. Okay, let me.
11 years, we know each other.
Of course. No offense taken. I love you guys. This came out in April of this year, and what it is, it has been contentious. We have to be honest with ourselves. It has been contentious. And I tell folks when I go to these kind of settings that the purpose of whatever we do it with the intention of protecting workers, right? Now, individuals have come to me, and it's very sad. I was at a prior meeting, and individuals has expressed to me the fact that they believe that it's a way of trying to unionize the workplace, of trying to do whatever the case might be. And that's their opinion. We don't look at it from that perspective. What we see is that if we have somebody who can articulate to OSHA the hazards at the workplace better than the employees at the work site, for whatever reason, it could be that there's a language barrier, right? That the person cannot articulate it. Or it could be the fact that the person is knowledgeable about that work condition, right? Or the hazards in that work. That's somebody who we would consider that can represent the employees, but the employees have to act so that they have to represent more than one employee at the work site. So it's not, okay, I represent the employee, so I must go in, right? As a matter of fact, I think our office was the first office or the only office for the nation that we had walk around representatives accompany us during an inspection, right? And I have to applaud the employers because the employers, and I hope that employers understand that when OSHA comes to a work site, they may not like it, but we come to a work site because there's a potential for a hazard. There's a report of a hazard. Somebody may have been injured. And what we're trying to do is to ensure that the hazard does not continue and to prevent it from occurring again. Employers may not like the outcome, which is a citation with penalties. I get that. But the idea is that you want an OSHA professional in there addressing the hazards to make sure that your workers don't get injured. And that's the idea of it. And that's why I said I applaud those employers who worked with us and allowed the walk-around representatives to go to exercise their right, because it's their right to have a representative. It's in the statute, right? That they're allowed to have a representative. So I know it's a contentious subject, but the compliance officer / OSHA maintains control of the work site. So it's not that we're letting anybody run roughshod. They come into the work site and they can go all about the place, take pictures and do whatever they want to do. The compliance officer makes the decision, yes or no, you can come into the work site, you can accompany us, and what you can and cannot do. And if they're being disrupted, the compliance officer says, sorry, we're not going to let you continue, and kick them off the works. So I know, folks get a little, worried when they have stuff like that. But the idea is that we want individuals who can articulate for the workers, because a lot of workers are afraid as well. They're afraid to come out and say, talk about the workplace hazard. And the idea behind it is that somebody who can bear their voice and express what the hazards are, so that the workers can be protected. All the other stuff that's outside of that, we are not listening, other noise we don't listen to. It's all about worker safety. Yes, sir.
Just to chime in, so we had done a session where we discussed the walk-around rule. We've given analysis of it, what you all can do. That is available on YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see it. And just to get voice, I think 100% we understand what you're saying. I think that some of the folks were concerned initially because it's been used by a political group, not necessarily a group that we feel has the best interest of the workers, but a group that is out for some type of political gain. And we discussed that with you. You were very gracious, and you spent a significant amount of time with AGC and a couple of our member representatives, which we appreciate. But I know I just wanted to give that voice. So if you guys want more additional information, you can go take a look at the YouTube. Thank you, Condo.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You guys showing up with this representative is for the employer, for the employees, saying we want this person to accompany, or what? How are you determining who that person is?
Okay. So
that the employees feel comfortable enough, or if they were not comfortable talking to OSHA, why would they look at that person as any different than OSHA if you guys are walking by it?
okay, and for the purpose of the audience, I can't recall the entire question, but I guess the gist of your question is, how is that representative selected, and who, if OSHA makes it, and how do they accompany OSHA on this site? I.e., you want to more or less me to explain how we do it, how we go about the process, which I am happy to. It's just I'll explain that. I'll just go through some of the other stuff a little more quickly for the sake of time. So, and it's a great question. Thank you for that. Essentially, what we do is that first, the person has to bring something of value to the inspection, meaning that they have to provide something that we wouldn't normally glean from just walking through and doing the inspection on our own. That's one of the tests that we look at. right? OSHA cannot give advance notice to employers. We can't give advance notice to employees and employees representatives either, right? So how is a person determined to be a representative? And it can occur in several ways. One is that we show up at the work site, we start an inspection, an employee said, hey, you know, Johnny is our representative. We'd like Johnny to accompany us at the inspection. That can occur. The other way it can occur is that Johnny is designated as a representative because he or she knows these workers, and 5 or 6 workers came to him and says, you know what, this workplace I have these issues at this workplace, and I would like OSHA to address it, but I don't want to file a complaint. I don't want to put my name on it because I'm afraid of retaliation, whatever the case might be. So this person files a complaint on their behalf, right? Saying I'm their representative. Now, we obviously have to say, well, you know, find out what that person, their representative, is going to bring to the inspection process. And when we're out there, we can't tell him, you know, you filed a complaint, so now we're going to do an inspection on March 1st or whatever the case might be. We don't do that. What we do is that when we get to the work site, we says, Mr. So-and-so, we're about to do an inspection, and we'll be conducting an inspection. And what it does is, because when we go to a work site and the employer says, hey, I need my lawyer present, or I need the manager here, he just went to Home Depot or whatever the case might be, he says, okay, we'll wait, we'll give you 30 minutes or an hour, up to an hour. So we give the same grace to the employer that we would give to the representative, so it's all fair. So that's how we go about it. When they're walking through the facility, we ask them not to be disruptive. They can listen in, they can ask questions, but we would rather them, and I tell the compliance officers, have the person ask you the question as a complaint, or convey to you what their concerns are, so that the compliance officer who is in control of the inspection is directing the show, because we don't want it to be disruptive. Because if they're talking to the folks and we're doing an inspection, it can become chaotic, and now we're disrupting the whole operation. It becomes counterproductive, because the idea is that we want them to be able to, if we are speaking to an employee and the employee is not able to express themselves because of language or whatever the case might be, they can translate for them or whatever the case might be. But if they go start doing the measurements, taking photographs and stuff, then they're doing the investigation. That makes no sense and becomes a problem for us. Yes, sir.
Thank you for saying that. So no photos. This third party will not be allowed to take photos, correct?
Well, we tell them not to take photos, and we don't want them. And I hope I'm not crossing the line here. I'm like, you just stand up and shut up. And if you need something, let's go to the corner, let's talk so we can address the concern that you have. Because it becomes really disruptive, because some employers may then start to feel uncomfortable that you have a person who is not an OSHA employee starts talking to employees, and it becomes really, then that's not the purpose for them being there. The purpose for them there is to help with the inspection, not to hurt the inspection. Did I answer your question, sir? Well, OSHA doesn't make this, we don't determine who is the representative, right? The employees have to select their representative. We only look at whether or not that representative will bring something of value to the inspection. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure about multiple employees.
Two or more.
Two or more.
Yes. If it's one person, then they're not considered a representative under the walk-around rule. Any other questions? I like the questions. And no, I'm serious, because you know we have to face it. You know, it doesn't make sense that we put something out there and we don't talk about it, because we want to know what your concerns are as well. Because you know, I feed that stuff back up to the folks above me and say, hey, I've done this. Like when I had a conversation with you, Carlos, and I fed it up and says, hey, these are some of the things that were raised during our meeting. You know, so that if they're going through any additional guidance to the field, they would take that into consideration and update their guidance. So these conversations are very helpful.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
I feel it's a lot of these folks work throughout the state of Florida.
Mhm.
So my question is, this, when we looked at it, it seemed like this third party rule, it's very, very open. So the way that you interpret it and guide your co-shows, are other offices using that same direction, or is everybody gonna have a little bit of a different direction with their co-shows?
It's pretty much, they're gonna get the same direction, because I consulted with the solicitor's office as well. The one thing that the guidance gives is that I think when it comes to talking to folks, it allows them to talk to them. So there may be cases where a conversation may occur, but I try to get my folks not to allow that conversation to occur in a matter where it's disruptive. Obviously, people may say, hey, how are you? We're, talk, but we want to make sure that we maintain control over the investigation. But for the most part, we have guidance that outlines everything that I've said. You're welcome. Okay, the HAZCOM standard, we amended the HAZCOM standard, addresses issues that arose during the implementation of 2012 out there and better provide alignment with other US agencies. The rule effective July 19, 2024. Let me see. Okay. And it talks about the adding hazard classes in Appendix B, the physical hazard. That's what I want to tell you. That gives more complete and detailed information about flammable gases and what happened. And the last thing here, the new emergency response standard. I have to admit that this is relative. A lot of news came out recently, and I'm not going to touch on it because I know it's very. This is another controversial one as well, and it has lots of comments that came out. So who knows what will happen with that? So I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to give misinformation on that. But except to say it's controversial, but I think that's good to know it's controversial. What's not controversial with OSHA, right? The PPE standard, that's good stuff. We know that would make consistency requirements of general industry and maritime, state that the PPE must fit properly to protect workers from workplace hazard. I mean, that's a common sense issue, right? You give a person a harness that doesn't fit well, they fall out. The person, a harness for a 300-pound person, the person is 105 pounds, and you don't want to give people improper PPE. The PPE should fit. And that's why it's important, sometimes you say, oh yeah, I give them PPE, and people, but they don't like to wear it. And the question is, did you ask them why? You buy a pair of shoes, or you buy a pair of shoes online, right? You just put them on and wear them, and sometimes they don't fit like you expect them to. And if you put on a pair of shoes that don't fit well, you're not going to wear them, right? People have PPE that don't fit well, they're not going to use it. So it's important that, that's a basic common sense thing, is to, when you give people equipment, you want to make sure that they actually like it and it fits well, it works, and it's effective. The proposed heat standard, the time for comment says December 30th, 2024. And then after that, we know standards takes forever to come to effect. And we launched an OSHA severe injury reporting dashboard on October 15. The dashboard allows users to search and download data by year. I looked at it, I glanced at it, and it talks about severe injuries reported by employers under the federal OSHA since 2015. And you pretty much you use it to see the kind of trends in the sectors, the various sectors. Compliance assistant activity, I call some more activities in here. Accomplishments, we did I'm probably underestimating Lenny's work, but we did over 200 compliance assistant activities. We signed 5 new alliances, including one with the Roofing Construction Association of South Florida. Anyone in here part of that group? That has been something that had eluded us for years. And, it's a testament that OSHA and the industry can work together and educate workers, because that's what it's about. And they actually put on a safety, I'm saying a safety fair, but that's not the correct term, but every year, like in February or so, they put on something for the employees where OSHA and University of South Florida participate. They do little workshops and what have you. So that's what alliances do. It allows the associations to use resources, tap into OSHA's resources, University of South Florida resources, and get information for their workers so that the workplace is safer. We also signed alliances with South Florida Manufacturers Association, Mexican Consulate, El Salvador, and Interactive Community Alliance. This is a small alliance, and I was surprised by the signing of it, but Lenny's a genius. And it represents communities in Palm Beach area, and the workers, you know, initially it's for workers who, you know, for the community. But then Lenny kind of expanded and said, hey, listen, this was a community group.
No, este es mío.
Oh, I was like, what's going on? Somebody's stuff. So it's a community that serves, an alliance that serves a community for different aspects of their needs. And then we expand it so that the people who are in that group can also get resources related to workplace safety and health. And they actually put on a symposium earlier this year that was well attended. We signed 6 partnerships, Moss, NV2A, Dragados, Lamar Tech, United Installation Structures, and 2 with Kaufman Lane. They actually signed 2 partnerships. I've never seen it before. It's like, they're nice work, Winston. I appreciate that. And it shows that partnerships do work, and it shows that a commitment by the employer to the workers. You know, sometimes it takes a lot of effort. I'm sure it took a lot of effort, and that partnership was born out of this meeting. So by getting me here, we get stuff done, right, Carlos? Because I met Winston last year, and Winston approached us, and we actually worked on it, and we got the partnerships built out of that. So thank you for that. That's why I said I like coming here. We get stuff done, and we get to protect the workers. It's meaningful to the workers. So great job. We have the partnerships going. We get the resources of USF. USF goes in and they talk to the subcontractors. And many of you who have been involved in partnership or who have these major sites and have subcontractors, you know what happens. The subcontractors are usually the most vulnerable, the ones who create the most liability for you, because they come on and they may bring on subs and what have you. And the workers are just there to do the job, and they're not necessarily in tune with all the safety and health issues. And that's why when we do partnerships, we always involve University of South Florida, because they have the nice people. They say they're the nice ones, we're the mean ones, but they bring their consultants in and they walk the sites, they do training to the subs, they provide resources, and it's a great experience. So I encourage you, if you're interested in a partnership, talk to Winston to get his experience. And if you want to talk to Lenny, reach out to Lenny. She'll be happy to walk you through it, and she does a lot of the legwork for you. Yes, ma'am. It's the general contractor, but the subs fall under it, and that's where USF comes in. You know, USF comes in and they take care of the subcontractors because they do most of the legwork. We make them do the work. We give them 80% of their funding anyway, so might as well make them work, right? No, but you. No, but the federal government gives University of South Florida a lot of their funding to actually help small businesses, and that's what they're doing. They're actually helping the small businesses, and it's very important because we've seen reduction in accidents and stuff as a result of the work activity that they're engaged in. Looking ahead. We expect to, I just have to toss this in there. We expect to do about 700 inspections for the year. That's the goal that we got at the beginning of the year, but obviously staffing and other factors come into play. And now we have the hurricane response work that might kind of chisel away at that. We still expect to do about 60% of our work activity in the construction sector. So every 6 out of 10 inspections will more than likely be a construction inspection. That's just the nature of the work in South Florida. But we also expect to increase the number of program inspections. We get a lot of the unprogrammed inspections or the calls and referrals and what have you, but we want to increase our focus on those emphasis programs that I talked about earlier, where we can get into those sectors and do more programmed inspection, because there are lots of hazards out there, especially in general industry. I mean, one of my supervisors was showing me earlier this week or last week, where one of the compliance officers went to a work site and a host of hazards, machine guarding, electrical, forklift, and all kind of issues at those workplaces. So we still have to get into those places. And that was a programmed inspection, meaning that they've never had a complaint or a referral for a long period of time. And by us not getting into those workplaces, workers are exposed to hazards. So important OSHA events. January 2nd, start submitting your injury tracking information. February 1st, you got to post a summary. March 25th to 29th, that was last year. I should have taken the dates out, but you stand up for Grain Safety Week. April 20th is a big day for OSHA. That's our birthday. More or less. That's Workers' Memorial Day. We have activities. And Lenny, for those of you who are on Lenny's mailing list, she will send you all kind of stuff. If you're not on her mailing list and you want to get on it, sometimes she will send, she'll have just a mailer to send out all kind of information. We encourage work employees. Normally in the past, our activities were focused with organized labor unions and what have you, but we're branching out and says, hey, it's Worker Memorial Day. We're commemorating the lives of those lost, but also we want to prevent future lives from being lost. So Worker Memorial Day is April 28th. Then you have the fall stand down, which many of the folks in this room, I'm sure, participate in. You have the trench safety stand down. July is the heat illness prevention campaign, but for South Florida, heat starts in February and goes all the way till November. So it's heat all the way around for us, heat illness campaign. And we have to be mindful of that. I say it tongue in cheek, but realize that heat can impact workers all the way through. We actually had a fatality that we investigated where heat was a factor, January, where the person died, January 1st. They actually came to the country on the 31st, went to work on January 1st and lost their lives. You know, unfortunate, they're unfortunate events. That's why I talked about acclimatization is really key. Yes, sir. It could have been, and you raise it, and I'm going to talk about something in general, right? And it's a great question, because a lot of times I have to be careful how I say it, because I don't want to judge people, because it's not good to judge. But we find that a lot of times when we get an autopsy report, there are some type of substance in the toxicology report. I'm not saying it's for that case, because I don't, but we do see that. And that's why the gentleman, I think he just left, that's why I said, even though we show up because of a death, we actually investigate the circumstances preceding the death, right? And your question is well-founded in the fact that there might be underlying circumstances, but we look at the employer's program, what the employer has been doing to protect the workers, including that worker who may have suffered an incident, right? And for whatever reason, folks are using substances and they use them on the job, and it can impact their health and direct impact their health, and it can impact the way they're operating equipment, impact the people who are working around them. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And it ties into mental health. I'm not going to go into it because you guys cover it a whole lot, but we have in our work population, there are lots of issues in our society, people with mental health issues, people with substance abuse issues that really impact workplace safety. That's why it's important as employers to really hone in on those things that we wouldn't normally, we look at falls, we look at those kind of things, electrical, but we have to look at those other issues as well. Safe and Sound Week, Labor Rights Week, National Farm Safety, and September Suicide Construction Prevention. I'm not going to, other initiatives and resources, you guys are going to get this. I know we are pressed for time, and it's stuff that I have on a standard slide, so it's nothing new, more or less. All right. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Oh, quiet bunch today, huh?
I know they didn't like the break because I told you. Yes,
No,
right.
no, enough.
Yes. Brian, yes, sir. 16. Oh, okay, good question. I thought you were gonna say, here's my application. Man,
Nobody wants that.
this was a recruited, that was a recruited slide on the slide. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, we, you know what, since the pandemic, many people have retired, when the pandemic occurred, some people have retired and we weren't able to fill the slots. And then some people came in, they didn't necessarily like it because, to be honest with you, when you have people coming on board during a pandemic and you can't travel, you can't do as you were freely, people may not get the right perspective initially and the right focus. So we have a lot of people that came on board and left. And the agency is changing, the administrative staff. You asked a very good question. We were up to 4 administrative staff. We're down to 1 administrative staff now. So it's just me. You have 3 assistant area directors, a compliance assistant specialist in Lenny. You have a whistleblower. You have 1 administrative assistant and 6 in compliance officers. Well, there's some of them have issues that they're not going into the field. So we are really short-handed, but good question. We're really limited in resources.
Any other questions? Awesome.
Just want to put a University of South Florida consultation program. It's an excellent resource. I have to put a plug in there for them. They are partners with us. They partner with us and they do an excellent job. So if anyone needs free help, don't want to see the bad guys, call the good guys, USF.
I caught that joke earlier, by the way. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yes. Alrighty. If that's it, there you're gonna get the slide, the presentation. It's all stuff that you see before. So I'll give Carlos back the floor.
Condell, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Hey, thank you all for attending. We went over, I'm very grateful. That was a great presentation. I didn't even realize we were late. But thank you all for coming today. Hockey game tomorrow. We're going to be, the Young Constructors Forum is hosting their annual hockey game. I believe tickets are still available. I think they've sold almost 100 tickets, so it should be a really, really good time out at the hockey arena. If you have any other questions for me regarding what's going on with AGC, happy to help you. For those of you filing for project awards, Build Florida, the South Florida AGC's Build Florida Awards will be March 7th. Party will be at Trump National Doral. Put in your projects. Let your project teams know to submit their projects so you can come out, get some awards, get some drinks, cigars, and have a good time. Thank you all very much. See you next month.